Greetings Namibia, welcome to another insightful episode of On the Farm with me, Michael Madimba. We're finding ourselves in Eros Park, Windhoek, where we're going to be speaking to Mr. Dean Spool, the director of Urban Harvest, who's responsible for the hydroponics project. Greetings, Dean.
Good morning, Michael.
How are you doing?
Bit frisky today, but very good, thanks. Yes. And yourself?
Awesome, thanks.
Cool.
Okay, thanks so much for having us. We're going to be looking at a bit of about what your project entails. Just from a layman's terms perspective, could you kindly explain to us the concept of hydroponics?
Certainly. If you break it down, it's fairly simple. Basically, hydroponics is growing plants without any soil, which might sound strange off the cuff of it. How can you grow plants without any soil? But basically, what hydroponics does is it substitutes the role of soil through adding different nutrients that plants need in water directly to them. And the beauty about this is that you're not dependent on having fertile soils in the right place at the right time. We're actually standing right here now on an old abandoned parking lot where we have created an urban farm. And so we are able to grow our crops here using only water and the nutrients we add to the soil. And this water then recirculates through our system. And if used efficiently, it can use up to 90% less water than any traditional soil-based methods.
Interesting stuff. Just take us a little bit backwards. So what does the project or the company Urban Harvest aim to achieve with this hydroponics project?
Certainly. So our goal is to try and produce food in an urban environment as close to the end consumer as possible, because often our food is produced very far away from us. More specifically, here in Namibia and in Windhoek, a lot of our food is produced in the Western Cape in South Africa, 1,500 kilometers away. And so our food has a very long lifespan where it has to be transported all this distance before it finally reaches us as the end consumer. And so food is very often then produced for its ability to be transported rather than for its ability to be fresh, nutritional, and healthy. And so producing food in an urban environment lets us focus on these aspects of our food production rather than its ability to be transported. So we saw this gap in the market where we're so dependent on food imports that there is a local demand for locally produced fresh goods. But having acknowledged the climate within Namibia, we're in a very arid, harsh environment, we realized that there was no other option but to adopt technologies into our production methods. And this is where the idea of hydroponics really started to come into play. Okay.
When I take a look around, I can see that you've got a strong bias towards lettuce. But apart from lettuce, what other crops or vegetables do you grow at this facility? And which other crops or vegetables can be successfully grown through the hydroponics method?
Sure. So firstly, the reason why you'll see such a strong tendency towards lettuce is that in general with hydroponics, the easiest and simplest crops to grow are those that just have green leafy profiles, basically, because they're a very simple crop versus things that fruit and have things like tomatoes and cucumbers a bit more complicated. So in general, I would recommend to anyone to start off with a green leafy crop. And we saw a demand in the market for lettuce, and this is why we started growing these crops first. But besides lettuce, we also focus on a bunch of herbs here. We grow things like rocket, spinach, parsley, basil, coriander, and such things. And we've also started to now experiment with our bigger fruiting crops. We're currently growing, now that it's cold, broccoli and cauliflower, and in summer we will go back to tomatoes and green peppers and such things.
Now, this is quite impressive, I must say, eh?
Thank you.
Okay. Now, apart from this project, where else has this project been replicated outside Commerce, Windhoek?
So the only other full-scale site that we've implemented thus far is in the Hardap region, very close to Marintel. We implemented a farm project there on behalf of an NGO called Impact Tank, who are doing fantastic work there to do youth and skill upliftment in the area through exposing them to agriculture and specifically technology-driven agriculture. So we've set up an operational farm there. Other than that, we've sold systems to other personnel who have gone to set up themselves. So there's different solutions which we can offer to clients. Either we can do a full turnkey solution, design, build and operate your farm. Alternatively, we can build certain systems for you and you can operate them based on our expertise and training which we provide. So there are different possibilities, but we are always on the lookout for new projects in other regions, in other places, and also within Windhoek itself to expand our operations to other locations.
Interesting. Now, would you be kind enough to share the sort of like initial dollar investment that's required to set up such a facility as this one?
Sure. So it obviously is dependent on the scale at which you wish to operate. I mean, we set up small home systems for people, which we produce and sell for anything from like 4,000 Namibian dollars up into a full-scale operation, which could be looking at 500,000 or more. But the general rule of thumb with hydroponics and these sort of systems is that it's a fairly high initial capital investment in exchange for lower operating costs. Because you're making things more efficient, you're actually keeping everything you use within the system as it recirculates. You use less water, less electricity, less fertilizers, and because you're not doing it in a soil-based system, you also compete less with other things like weeds and pests, so you use less labor in the process as well. So it is a high capital investment for that lower operational investment.
Great stuff. All right, you mentioned about the turnkey solutions that you also provide to clients. In addition to that, are there any other services that you offer as well?
Yes. So, I mean, the main core part of our business is actually producing food and crops and selling these directly to restaurants, wholesales and consumers. But we also do system design. So we can produce a system for a client, we can set it up for them, and we can then operate it for them as well. So there's a service-based component which we can offer, but we also do trainings. So actually, for example, on this Saturday, we will offer a day workshop introducing people to the basics of hydroponics and aquaponics, and also having a practical component where they can actually come and see the farm and the setup and things like this. And we host these training workshops once a month.
Now, we know how technology plays a pivotal role in enhancing or speeding up development. The agricultural sector is not an exception as well. How has technology enabled you further this project?
I mean, yeah, technology, I think, no matter if you're doing hydroponics or soil-based farming, is going to play a very fundamental role in the success of any venture, because you can use technology to really optimize the conditions in which you grow, in which you operate. You can increase your yield, you can increase your water efficiency, which is especially relevant in a country like Namibia, where our water resources are under pressure. I mean, we're suspected to go into another drought year this year, and so especially in an urban environment where water usage competes directly with human consumption of water resources, you have to be very sensitive towards it. But not only that though, as we have mass urbanization, not just in Namibia but in the rest of the world, where young people don't necessarily want to live in rural areas and become farmers because they lose access to a lot of the vibrancy and culture with the city life. Adopting technology into a farming operation actually enables young people to live the best of both worlds. You can be a farmer and in an urban environment. So I really think that there are so many benefits to be had through adopting technologies into your operations, not only from a growing perspective, but from a selling perspective, a marketing perspective. It all just feeds in at the end of the day.
Great. Now, just in case you didn't know, I'm also an avid urban grower as well.
Fantastic.
I do some backyard gardening there, so I actually understand the concept of food self-sustenance as well. But on your side, what are your future aspirations as well as they relate to food sustenance for Namibia and the world at large?
Well, I truly believe that any country is able to become independent with regards to its food production and security, at least on a fundamental level. I think that it's within the interests of national security, firstly, that to feed your population, to ensure that even despite global disruptions or wars in other places of the world, anything like this, at least your nation is food secure. And I ultimately think that this isn't done alone. So I'm a big advocate for backyard gardening. The more people who can contribute towards solving the problem, the better. And I think it also gives us as people a better understanding of where our food comes from. Why is it good for us? How does food act as medicine? How does it contribute towards our health? And also just the therapeutic benefits from it. Being mindful, having that backyard project that you can actually see the results on, the satisfaction that comes from this, the coming home from a stressful day and spending a bit of time in the garden, I think is really a great thing to do. So I definitely see it as a combined national approach. There are many key players. Obviously, government needs to come in with policy regulations, which they often do. We need access to finance, but we also do need access to skills. And so we as Urban Harvest would very much like to play a pivotal role in this aspect by providing trainings, providing internship opportunities, and helping to empower people with the necessary skills in order to run their own ventures and produce their own food.
Awesome. Any final words to Namibians there? Anything else you might want to add?
I think one thing I would really like to add is that it seems complicated at first, but it all begins with the right attitude, the right approach, and the right mindset. And so once you have that, the rest follows. And there are access to resources, there are access to trainings, and so you need only reach out. I mean, we're available on Instagram and we have a website, Urban Harvest Namibia. So we really encourage anyone who is interested in this field and in this topic to contact us and to start it. And from there we grow a community and we work on this together.
Thank you so much, Dean. That was quite insightful.
Thank you. It's been lovely having you.
Thank
awesome.
you. There you have it, Namibia, Mr. Dean Spool, the director of Urban Harvest, a hydroponics project operating here in the capital. Catch me on another insightful episode of On the Farm. From myself, Michael Madimba, that's a wrap.